poor mechanic helps simple woman fix her car. Unaware, she's a billionaire CEO. Shock of his life. James had helped hundreds of people before. Most never looked back. So when a quiet woman in a beat-up sedan rolled into his garage, he didn't think twice. He fixed her car, refused her money, and went back to work like it meant nothing. But what he didn't know was that the woman he just helped was worth $3.2 billion. She came dressed like she was broke, because she wanted to see who would help her when she had nothing to offer. And James? He passed a test he didn't even know he was taking. By the time the truth reached him, his garage was surrounded by black SUVs, and his name was already in the headlines. The sun showed no mercy that day. It burned through the sky like a branding iron, baking the cracked pavement outside Foster's Auto Repair and leaving waves of heat to shimmer in the air. Inside, the tiny garage buzzed with the sound of an ancient ceiling fan pushing stale air from corner to corner. James Foster leaned over the open hood of a '99 Ford, his shirt soaked through with sweat, his hands blackened with grease and grit. The radio played faintly from a dusty shelf in the corner, skipping every few seconds like it was gasping for breath, just like the place it lived in. Foster's had been running on fumes for a while now. Tools were borrowed, parts recycled, and the last box of oil filters had been split between 3 jobs. His rent was late again. Power bill overdue. Even the light in the bathroom had given up, flickering one last time like it was embarrassed before going dark for good. But James wasn't the kind of man who complained. He simply wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist, straightened up with a groan, and reached for the next tool. And that's when he heard it, a cough from the road, the sad mechanical wheeze of a car that had clearly given up. He turned toward the sound, squinting through the glare. A silver sedan limped into view, its bumper sagging on one side, the left turn signal stuck in an endless blink, like it was begging for help. It stuttered to a halt in front of his garage, exhaling one final puff of smoke from the hood before going quiet altogether. James dropped the wrench with a soft clink and grabbed a rag to clean his hands. The driver's side door opened slowly, almost cautiously, and a woman stepped out. She wasn't what he expected. No perfume, no attitude, no drama. Just a woman in dusty flats and faded jeans, her white blouse loose and creased from the seatbelt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that had clearly been an afterthought. She looked around uncertainly, shielding her eyes from the sun, then met his gaze. Her voice was soft, just above a whisper. "I think it's the battery. Or maybe something worse. It won't start again." James nodded and started walking toward her before she could say another word. He wasn't one for small talk. "Pop the hood," he said. She obeyed instantly, her hands still wringing nervously. James didn't notice at first, but later, he'd remember how tightly she clutched her keys, like they were the last thing tethering her to a life she didn't want to explain. As he peered inside the engine bay, he caught a faint scent, nothing floral or expensive, just clean laundry and a trace of old coffee. Something about it reminded him of simpler times. He ran a quick visual, then touched the corroded battery terminal. The wire looked loose, and the fuse box had signs of water damage. "You've been running this thing a while without maintenance," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "I guess I never made the time." He glanced at her, but didn't press. Something about her didn't add up, not in a suspicious way, but in the kind of way that made you think twice. She had the look of someone used to hiding in plain sight. "Name's James," he said, grabbing a ratchet. "Ava," she replied, almost too quickly. "Well, Ava, you picked the right place to break down," he said, only half joking. "Won't cost you an arm and a leg. Maybe just a pinky toe." She chuckled, a light, almost melodic sound that cut through the thick, hot air like a breeze. Then she watched in silence as he got to work, wiping the sweat from his face again as he leaned into the job. From inside the garage, the old ceiling fan wobbled precariously. A calendar from last year still hung behind the counter, curled at the edges and yellowing with time. James moved with a quiet rhythm, the kind born not just from experience but necessity. Every move was efficient, every motion stripped down to what mattered. Ava sat on a dented folding chair just inside the open garage door, watching him. She didn't pull out a phone. She didn't check the time. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, eyes scanning the walls, the floor, the fan, then back to him. After 10 minutes, he turned and pointed to a small mini fridge. "There's cold water in there, if you want." I'm okay, she said. You look like you're melting. So do you, she replied. He smirked and went back to work. He cleaned the battery terminals, secured the wire, and replaced a fuse with one from his emergency stash. He didn't use gloves, couldn't afford to burn through another pair. When he was done, he shut the hood and stepped back. Try it now. She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the engine growled back to life like it had been holding its breath. She looked up at him through the windshield, eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. She stepped out quickly, reaching into her bag. How much do I owe you? He shook his head. Nothing. Her brow creased. But you fixed it. James shrugged. Didn't take much. I can pay you. Really. He wiped his hands on the rag again and glanced down at her shoes. The dust on them. The way she kept her eyes low. This wasn't just a breakdown. She was running from something. He could feel it. Or maybe trying to hide from something she used to be. Look, he said gently. It's hot. Your car's working, and you seem like you've got enough on your plate. Some things in life don't need an invoice. She stared at him for a long beat, her lips parting like she was about to say something more. But then she simply nodded. Thank you, James. He nodded once. Drive safe. She walked back to the sedan, started the engine again, and pulled away slowly. But before she turned the corner, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up briefly as she snapped a quick picture of the garage sign. James caught the flash just as she drove off. He didn't think much of it at the time. People took pictures all the time. Maybe she just wanted to remember where to come back if the car broke down again. But later that night, he would think about that moment. About her eyes. About the way she said his name like it meant something. And the picture? That was the moment his life started to change. Only he didn't know it yet. The shop felt too quiet after she left. James wiped the sweat from his neck with an old t-shirt and went back to the pickup truck he'd been working on before. But something lingered in the air, like the scent of rain before a storm, though the skies stayed clear. He told himself it was just a regular customer, just another car. Still, he kept glancing at the corner where her sedan had been. By late afternoon, the heat had become unbearable. He stepped outside, letting the sun slap his face one more time as he cracked open the mini fridge and grabbed one of the last water bottles. There were only 3 left. He'd have to make them stretch until Friday. He took a sip, then froze. Her keys. They were sitting on the edge of the workbench, right next to the fuse tester. The key fob with the worn buttons, a single silver key, and a tiny rubber tag with the faded imprint of a roadside assistance number. She must have set them down while he worked, then driven off with the spare. He sighed, walked back into the office, and pulled out a small envelope. No address, just the name she'd given, Ava. He placed the keys inside and scribbled a note. You left these. No charge for the fix. Just pay it forward. James. He stuck it on the board where the unpaid bills were pinned and got back to work. At 6:03 p.m., the phone rang. Foster's, he said, without much energy. A pause, then a soft voice. Did I leave my keys? He smiled. I got him right here. I'm so sorry. I was flustered earlier. I didn't even realize. It happens. Can I pick them up? I'll wait. By 6:28, her car pulled back into the lot. This time, she parked carefully and stepped out a little slower. No rush. No panic. Just quiet footsteps. James met her at the door, envelope in hand. She took it gently. Thank you. No worries. She hesitated. You sure you won't take anything? I can pay. For real this time. He shook his head. What am I gonna do? Charge you for forgetting your keys? That and the fix. He leaned on the doorway. Didn't cost me anything but time. And I wasn't doing much with it anyway. She looked around the garage. Her eyes took in the torn seat on the waiting bench, the rusted toolbox with broken latches, the flickering fluorescent light above the counter. This place has been here a while, hasn't it? My dad opened it. Back when gas was $1 a gallon. And now it's me, fighting to keep the roof from caving in. She smiled. Not out of pity. It felt like understanding. You work alone? Mostly. Hired help costs more than I make. But I get by. Ava nodded slowly, as if filing that away. James checked the clock. You hungry? She looked surprised. He gestured to the back room. Microwave pizza. Best gourmet meal you'll get in this zip code. She laughed. I don't want to impose. You're not. She followed him inside. The back office was more storage closet than break room. A mini fridge hummed loudly in the corner. A tiny microwave sat atop a filing cabinet labeled Receipts 2006 to 2015. James pulled out 2 frozen pizza pockets, threw them in, and hit start. Ava stood by the window, watching the sun dip behind the auto yard next door. "You ever think about leaving?" "All the time," he said. "Then I remember, this is what I know. My dad died under that lift. Heart attack, right in the middle of an oil change. This place is all I've got left of him." She turned to face him. "He must have been proud of you." "I don't know. He didn't say much. But he taught me one thing. Do the work and be decent." The microwave beeped. James handed her a paper towel with the steaming pizza pocket. She took it with a soft, "Thanks," and sat down on the crate opposite him. They ate in silence for a minute. Then she spoke. "Most people I meet want something. I don't. I noticed." He looked up at her. "That bother you?" "No," she said. "It's rare. That's all." When she finished eating, she stood, dusted her hands, and pulled a small envelope from her bag. "Just in case," she said, placing it on the desk. "You ever need something?" James looked at it, but didn't open it. She smiled and stepped outside. He followed her, stopping at the threshold as she got into her car. She rolled down the window. "Thank you again." He gave her a wave. "Safe drive." She pulled out onto the road and disappeared into the orange light of dusk. He walked back in and looked at the envelope she'd left. It was unmarked, plain white, sealed tight. He opened it slowly. Inside, 5 crisp $100 bills. No note, just the money. He sighed. He walked to the wall, pulled out a pushpin, and tacked the envelope above the fuse cabinet. He wouldn't spend it. Not yet. Not until he knew if he'd earned it. At 10:17 that night, long after the streets had gone quiet and the shop had gone dark, a black SUV passed slowly down the road. It didn't stop. But the passenger, an older man in a black suit, glanced toward the garage and gave a small nod. The driver didn't ask questions. And the next morning, James would wake to something he never expected, an anonymous delivery at the front of the shop. But that was still a day away. Tonight, James sat alone on the shop bench, sipping lukewarm water, staring at the photo of his father on the wall. "Would you have helped her too?" he asked out loud. No one answered. But in the quiet, it felt like he already knew. The morning air was cooler than usual. James arrived early, unlocking the shop just after 6. The sun hadn't fully climbed the horizon, but the sky glowed with streaks of dusty pink and faint blue. He pushed open the side door and flicked on the lights. Half of them buzzed, but didn't turn on. The others hummed weakly, casting long, tired shadows over the oil-stained floor. James poured himself a coffee from the pot he'd brewed yesterday. It was bitter, cold, but still better than nothing. He stood by the window, sipping slowly, staring out at the empty road. And then, at 6:43 a.m., the first strange thing happened. A delivery van pulled into the lot. Not a parts truck, not a tool rep. This was something else. White, clean, with no logo. The driver stepped out, clipboard in hand, and greeted James with a polite nod. "Foster's Auto." James nodded, cautiously. "Got a delivery for you." "I didn't order anything." "It's paid for. Signature only." James hesitated, then scrawled his name on the tablet. The driver opened the back of the van and unloaded 3 crates. Clean, branded, untouched. Milwaukee tools. High-end. Thousands of dollars worth of equipment he hadn't even dreamed of owning. "What is this?" James asked. The driver shrugged. "No note. Just a return address in New York. Have a good day." The van drove off. James stood there, stunned, watching the sunlight reflect off the polished red metal handles. He didn't move for several minutes. Who the hell sends a man like him brand new tools without a word? He wheeled the crates into the garage and locked the door behind him. That's when he saw it. Something else had changed. Tacked to the garage door was a glossy photo of his shop. The same angle the woman had taken. Except this one was printed professionally. High resolution. Mounted. There was a gold-foiled card paper clipped to the top. In elegant script. "Thank you for fixing what didn't cost much, when it could have cost everything." No signature. James leaned against the wall, heart pounding, trying to piece it together. The woman. The SUV. The envelope of money. And now this. Something wasn't right. He didn't mention it to anyone that day. He simply worked. But even as he rotated tires and flushed coolant, his mind kept drifting. Why the tools? Why now? And then, around 4:30 p.m., the black SUV showed up. It rolled to a stop at the far end of the lot, sleek, dark-tinted, silent. The engine purred low like it was barely working. The door opened, and out stepped a man in a suit. Charcoal gray. Pressed. Sharp. James didn't recognize him, but he could tell instantly. This wasn't a customer. The man walked up slowly, shoes untouched by dust, carrying a slim leather folder under his arm. "You James Foster?" he asked. James nodded, wiping his hands on a rag, already tense. "That depends on who's asking." The man extended a card. White. Minimalist. Graham Keller, personal advisor to Ava Lynn. Avanta Motors Global Office Division. James stared at it, then back at the man. "Is this a joke?" "I assure you it's not." "What do you want?" "She'd like to thank you." James narrowed his eyes. "Who?" The man smiled, patient but unreadable. "Miss Lynn, the woman you helped. The one with the silver sedan. Yesterday." James said nothing. She was driving alone, no security, dressed casually. She wanted to test something. "What kind of test?" "To see if kindness still exists," Keller said. "Without influence. Without wealth. Without obligation." James crossed his arms. "And I passed, did I?" "She believes so." James glanced at the black SUV. "So what happens now?" Keller opened the leather folder and handed James an envelope. "This is for you. An invitation. You'll want to read it carefully." James didn't take it immediately. Something in his chest twisted, like the ground beneath him had shifted slightly, and he hadn't caught his balance. "What's in it?" "Opportunity," Keller said. "She's not looking to pay you off. She's looking to elevate you." James finally took the envelope. Keller stepped back toward the SUV. "You don't have to decide today, but she hopes you'll come. And if you don't, well, she said to tell you this. Some people fix engines. Others fix what's broken in the world. You did both." The door shut. The SUV pulled away without a sound. James stood alone with the envelope in his hand. He didn't open it until hours later. The shop had long gone dark. The fan overhead creaked with every slow rotation. James sat at his desk, the envelope before him, unopened, untouched. He stared at the photo pinned above the fuse cabinet. His father, standing beside a beat-up Dodge, sleeves rolled, grease on his cheek. The kind of man who didn't take favors, who never trusted easy. James opened the envelope. Inside was a card. Thick, heavy, like something pulled from a private auction or a five-star gala. "You are cordially invited to Avanta Motors Global Headquarters. Executive Tower, 47th floor. New York City. Private entrance reserved. Suite A." Beneath it, in ink, not print, was a single sentence. "No suit required. Just bring the hands that helped me. Ava." James leaned back slowly in his chair, feeling the old wood creak beneath him. A billionaire CEO. She had sat in his garage like anyone else. And now she wanted him to come to her tower of glass and steel. For what? He didn't know. But something told him, whatever it wasn't about a car. James stood on the sidewalk outside a glass tower that didn't belong to his world. 47 stories of steel and sky. The revolving door spun like a heartbeat, letting in suits and heels and briefcases with urgency written across their faces. He wasn't wearing a suit. Just a clean pair of jeans, boots scrubbed until they stopped squeaking, and a collared shirt he'd ironed twice. Still, he felt like a stain in a showroom. He walked in. The receptionist didn't ask questions. She didn't look surprised. She simply checked his name off a list, smiled, and handed him a black visitor badge. "Elevator to your right," she said. "Top floor. She's expecting you. No ID check. No delay. Just a straight path to the top." He pressed the button for the 47th floor. The elevator hummed silently as it ascended. Glass walls revealed the city stretching far below him. For the first time in years, he had no tools in his hands, no engine noise in his ears. Just silence, and the realization that something big was about to unfold. The doors opened. The space was massive, marble floors, soft lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view of Manhattan. But his eyes didn't go to the view. They landed on her. Ava. This time, she wasn't in dusty jeans or a wrinkled blouse. She wore a tailored navy suit, her hair neat, her posture calm. But her face? It was exactly the same. Quiet. Watchful. Still the woman who'd rolled into his shop like she had nothing to offer. She walked toward him, hand extended. "James," she said. "Thank you for coming." He shook her hand. "I almost didn't," he admitted. "I know," she said. I wouldn't have blamed you. They sat at a table near the windows. No assistants. No board members. Just them. James broke the silence. Why the disguise? Why my shop? Ava took a breath. My father built a Vanta. Brick by brick. When he died, the board wanted someone polished to take over. I was that someone. But I didn't grow up in this tower. I grew up in the garage below it. I learned to turn wrenches before I learned to balance a spreadsheet. She looked him in the eye. I needed to know if what my father believed in still existed. That if you stripped away money, power, recognition, people would still choose to help. For no reason but decency. So you tested me. I observed you, she corrected. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask what I did or where I was from. You offered water, fixed my car, and told me to pay it forward. That's rare now. James leaned back. So what now? You thank me and send me on my way. No, she said firmly. I want to offer you something. She reached for a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were architectural renderings. A facility. Wide bays, pristine lifts, classrooms, lounges, machine stations. At the top of the document, a Vanta mentorship and mechanical academy. James flipped through slowly. You want me to work here? He asked. No, she said. I want you to lead it. He looked up. We're launching a national training program for under-resourced mechanics, young people, returning veterans, single parents, people who never had a shot. We've built the funding, but we need someone who understands the work. Someone who doesn't just preach integrity, but lives it. James exhaled slowly. I've never taught anyone. You've taught me, she said, without even knowing it. He closed the folder. What's the catch? No catch. The garage stays yours. We'll fund the upgrades. You run your shop. We launch the pilot program nearby. Your terms. Your leadership. And if I say no? She smiled faintly. Then you go home. And nothing changes. Except I'll always remember you as the man who reminded me who I used to be. James stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the city. You know what I thought when you drove off? He asked. She waited. I thought. I've seen people like her before. Fancy bags. Clean shoes. Always passing through. I never expected you to come back. I wasn't passing through, Ava said. I was looking for the kind of person I wanted to invest in. He turned back to her. I don't want to be a poster boy. You won't be. I don't want to be your charity case. You're not. He studied her for a long moment. You believe in this? He asked. Enough to stake my name on it. He nodded slowly. Then he reached into his back pocket, pulled out a folded paper, her original note, and placed it on the table. Fixing things isn't the hard part, he said. It's knowing who you're fixing them for. I'm not the same woman who walked into your shop. I know, he replied. Neither am I. She stood, extended her hand again. So we start. He shook it firmly. We start. James sat on the edge of his cot in the back room of the garage. The place smelled like old oil, burnt rubber, and rust, but it was his. A folded shirt hung from a hook near the window. A dented coffee pot hissed on a hot plate that was older than most of the tools in his chest. In front of him sat the folder Ava had given him. He'd read it twice. He knew the offer. He understood the stakes. The Avanta project would be life-changing, for him, for others. State-of-the-art equipment, nationwide reach, full autonomy. But something inside him hesitated. He reached up and ran his hand along the edge of the workbench where his father had carved a name into the wood. JF, his father had once told him. A man's place is where his hands still make sense. He closed the folder. Later that afternoon, Ava arrived without a convoy, no bodyguards, no assistants. Just her, in jeans and a hoodie, with a coffee in one hand and a plain brown bag in the other. James was in the garage, tightening a belt on a Buick that hadn't run right in months. He didn't look up when she entered. You always show up unannounced, he asked. I brought sandwiches, she said. Figured it was better than an email. He wiped his hands and finally looked at her. You don't strike me as someone who eats lunch out of a paper bag. She smiled. I grew up doing it. They sat in silence, each unwrapping their sandwich, seated on opposite milk crates by the open garage bay. James took a bite, then glanced toward the office. I've been thinking. I figured, Ava replied. This offer of yours, it's generous. It's not charity, she said. It's recognition. He nodded slowly. Still, I don't know if I'm the guy you think I am. You fixed a stranger's car without asking who she was, she said. You turned down money. You made time for someone who didn't matter. You are the guy I think you are. He looked at her. My dad died back there. Heart attack. Mid-job. He fell and never got up. I found him under a '94 Chevy with the wrench still in his hand. And after the funeral, everyone told me to sell the place. Said the city had moved on. I didn't. I stayed. This isn't just a job. It's who I am. I'm not asking you to leave this, she said. I'm asking you to use it. Expand it. Let. He didn't answer. I'm not comfortable being put on a stage, James said finally. The moment you stick a camera in my face or write my name in press releases, I lose who I am. Then we won't, she said. He turned to her, surprised. She continued. We can build this quietly. Let your work speak. No press. No limelight. Just results. Just people being helped. You set the rules. He stood, tossed the sandwich wrapper in the bin. You serious? I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. James walked back toward the Buick. He stared at the engine for a long time. Then he turned around. You still plan to run it nationwide? She nodded. Eventually. But the first facility here. In this town. Under your name. My name doesn't carry weight. Exactly why it should. He looked around at the cracked walls, the broken clock above the doorway, the rusted signs on the shelves. Then he looked back at her. This shop stays mine. No branding. No changes unless I approve them. Done. And the kids who come through, they don't pay a cent. Of course. And I hire my own staff. Whoever you want. He paused. And I don't take orders. She smiled. Neither do I. He extended his hand. No promises past tomorrow. That's all I need. They shook. Ava stood, brushed her hands off, and walked toward the door. But before she stepped out, she turned back. One more thing. James raised an eyebrow. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. This is the deed to this garage, she said. It's yours, fully. I purchased it through a shell company last year when I heard it was going into foreclosure. I've been holding on to it. Just in case. James froze. She set the paper down gently on the counter. No strings. You've already earned it. He didn't speak. She stepped out into the sunlight and didn't look back. James walked slowly toward the counter, picked up the deed with shaking hands, and sat down. He stared at the name printed at the bottom. Foster Automotive Incorporated, sole owner, James F. Foster. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just sat there, the sound of the street outside drifting in, the whir of the fan above echoing through the stillness. This was his now, truly his. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the same man who once said no to every chance that knocked. The building stood where a long-abandoned warehouse used to rot, its walls once tagged with graffiti, its floor littered with broken glass and forgotten tools. Now it was new, fresh paint, reinforced beams, reinforced purpose. Above the wide bay doors hung a clean white sign, the Foster Training Center. James stood inside, hands on his hips, watching 20 young men and women file into the shop in matching gray coveralls. They came from every corner of the county, some fresh out of high school, others holding second chances instead of diplomas. One of them limped from an old injury. Another had a child waiting at the back of the room in a stroller. They all watched James. He picked up a wrench. This, he said, raising it, is the only degree I ever earned. It's not shiny. It's not framed. But it put food on my table, saved strangers on the side of the road, and kept my name out of a cell. You learn to use this right, and no one can take your life from you. No one clapped. No one cheered. They just listened. And that was enough. The ripple had begun. It started small. Word spread fast that the Foster garage was back, refurbished, restaffed, open for mentorship. The classes were free. The tools were top of the line. And the man leading it? The same one who used to patch radiators with zip ties and prayers. Reporters tried to get inside, but James turned them away. Let the kids work, he told them. This isn't about headlines. Still, the attention came. Donors started calling Ava's office. Former mechanics offered to volunteer. Community colleges wanted a partner. Local news aired a feature. Then regional press. Then national. But inside the garage, nothing changed. James kept the walls bare. The old clock still ticked above the door. And he still drank his coffee cold and bitter. One afternoon, Ava visited quietly. No press. No handlers. She leaned on the wall as James taught a young woman how to flush coolant from a hybrid. When the lesson ended, the girl, maybe 19, looked at Ava and asked, "Is he always like that?" Ava smiled. "Only when he's holding a wrench." The girl grinned and went back to work. By month 3, there was a waiting list. Kids from 5 towns away applied. Veterans showed up with resumes. Single moms asked if there were evening slots. James expanded the schedule, reluctantly. 2 former students became his assistants. One of them, a boy named Kelson, had nearly joined a gang before stumbling into the garage for shelter one rainy night. Now he ran diagnostics like a pro. James didn't tell them about Ava. He didn't tell them about New York, the boardroom, or the contracts. He let them believe the garage had been his all along. Because in a way, it had. It wasn't long before someone asked if they could paint over the old Foster's Auto sign on the original garage next door. James said no. That's where this all started, he told them. That stays. The ripple kept going. Parents came to shake his hand. One woman brought a pie. A retired bus driver donated an entire toolbox. An old customer returned with a rebuilt engine he wanted the students to tear apart and study. Even the mayor showed up. James gave him a 5-minute tour and sent him on his way. No speeches, he said. Just let us work. But behind closed doors, he and Ava planned a second center. Then a third. Different states. Different names. Same blueprint. James insisted on one rule. Each site must be led by someone who came from the trade, not someone who managed from above. Not someone chasing media. Someone like him. Late one evening, James stood alone in the main bay. The lights were dim. The students had gone home. Silence filled the space where hammers had clanged and compressors had hissed just hours earlier. He walked slowly to the back wall, where a photo now hung. It showed him standing beside his father's garage, wearing the same overalls, a fresh group of students behind him. He touched the frame. From his pocket, he pulled out the original envelope Ava had left him, the one with the crisp bills he never spent. He opened it, still untouched. He slid the money out, stared at it, then tucked it back in and pinned the envelope beneath the photo. A reminder. He didn't start this journey with a check. He started it by saying no to one. The next morning, a boy barely old enough to drive walked into the shop. He had no appointment, no paperwork, just dirt under his nails and a look James had seen in the mirror 20 years earlier. "You the guy that helps people?" the boy asked. James nodded once. "You got hands?" "Yeah." "You willing to work?" "Yeah." James tossed him a pair of gloves. "Then grab a broom. Let's see what you're made of." Ava watched from a distance that day, hidden in her car. She didn't need to speak to James. She already knew what he'd say. It had only taken one afternoon, one rusty car, one quiet woman, one act of kindness. And now, the ripple was spreading. One bolt, one life, one garage at a time. The invitation came on a Monday morning, tucked into a small black envelope left on the front counter of James's garage. No return address, just his name, handwritten in gold. Inside was a single card. "You are the guest of honor. Please join us at the launch of the Lynn Foster Foundation, a global initiative for trade education. Date, Saturday. Location, Avanta HQ, New York City. Dress code, come as you are. The world already knows who you are." James stared at it for a long time, then tucked it inside his wallet. He didn't tell the students. Didn't mention it to Ava. Didn't even circle the date on the calendar. But when Saturday came, he was on the road before dawn, driving the old Dodge truck his father had once called the Beast. Still ran like hell. Still backfired if you turned too fast. But it got him there. At 11:57 a.m., James pulled into a private entrance beneath the Havana Tower. A valet opened his door like he was royalty. James didn't flinch. He stepped out. Same boots, same jeans, same calloused hands. Inside, everything gleamed, glass, chrome, polished wood. But he didn't look around. He just followed the signs to the rooftop hall. When the elevator doors opened, the applause started before he'd taken a full step. Hundreds of people packed the rooftop terrace. Strings of lights floated overhead. Reporters stood along the far side with cameras, waiting. Students from the original Foster Training Center sat in the front rows. Some were now instructors, some business owners, all of them on their feet. And standing at the podium, microphone in hand, was Ava. She smiled when she saw him. "He's here," she said into the mic, "the man who thought he was just fixing a car." Laughter rippled through the crowd. James froze at the edge of the aisle. But Ava gestured toward the front. "Come on, James. Don't make me read your resume. It's 3 lines long." He exhaled and walked slowly toward the stage. She stepped aside as he climbed up. James adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and looked out at the sea of faces. I don't do speeches, he began. The crowd waited. I fix things. Engines. Belts. Bearings. The stuff people forget until it stops working. I never thought that would mean anything more than another day covered in grease. But then one day, a woman broke down in front of my shop. He paused. She didn't need a lecture. She didn't ask for charity. She just needed a hand. So I gave it. He looked at Ava. I didn't know she was watching. I didn't know I was being tested. But I'm glad I didn't, because if I had, maybe I'd have hesitated. And that hesitation would have cost me the best decision I ever made. He looked back at the crowd. You all think this started because of me. But it didn't. It started because someone powerful remembered what it feels like to be powerless. And instead of staying quiet, she used her voice. He stepped back and gestured toward Ava. She's the real engine here. I'm just the wrench. The crowd erupted. Ava returned to the podium and placed her hand on James's shoulder. And that's why I trust him to lead, she said. The event ended in waves of handshakes, camera flashes, and congratulations. But the real shock hadn't come yet. After the crowd thinned and the rooftop began to empty, Ava led James through a side door and into a smaller private room. On the table sat a wooden box. Open it, she said. James raised the lid. Inside was a single metal plaque mounted on mahogany. The Lynn Foster Foundation headquarters, dedicated to those who fix what others throw away. President, James Foster. He blinked. This is your foundation. No, Ava said. It's ours. But it's yours to lead. He stepped back. I didn't ask for this. I know, she said. But you earned it. James sat down slowly. People like me don't run foundations. People like you are the only ones who should. He didn't speak for a while. Then he nodded once. Just once. I'll need help. You'll have it. A few weeks later, a ribbon was cut at the new national headquarters, complete with a hybrid training garage, a resource center for underserved workers, and scholarship pipelines for technical colleges. The board of directors was handpicked by James, former mechanics, tradespeople, and instructors who'd lived what they taught. But the biggest surprise came quietly. James returned to the garage one afternoon and found a boy waiting outside, maybe 10, holding a little notepad. Are you the guy that helped the lady who turned out to be rich? James smiled. Something like that. My mom said you're the reason she got her job back. James crouched down. What's your name? Elijah. Well, Elijah, James said, handing him a wrench. You got hands. The boy nodded. Then you're already halfway there. The boy beamed. And just like that, another ripple began. That night, James locked up the shop and walked home under a quiet sky. The streets were dark. The stars looked the same. But something had shifted. Not in the world. In him. Because once, he thought kindness didn't matter. That good men finished broke, forgotten, and worn out. But now he knew better. One act. One woman. One choice. It changed everything. And it all started with a car that wouldn't start. And a man who didn't ask why. Kindness doesn't always make headlines, but it changes lives. If this story moved you, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who believes in good people, and hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10, and tell us, what would you have done?